For this technique, you need to use the same size cake board as your cake. So in this case, I have an 8-inch cake, which shrinks just a little bit. And so I'm using 8-inch cake boards underneath my cake and now on top. And I've placed the cake board on top with the plastic side down on my crumb-coated cake that's been frozen for about 10 minutes. Then I'm now going to put my hand in the center of the cake board to hold it steady, and I'm using the buttercream to frost the top half of the cake, and it kind of holds the board in place. You'll see I'm going up over the edge of the board, kind of to act as glue and hold it in place as I frost the rest of the cake. You'll want a nice even layer. Don't put too much because we still need to add some on the bottom, and we'll be scraping it off and kind of playing back and forth. Okay, so I've got a good coat on the top half of the cake, and now I'm going to fill in the bottom half of the cake. And I want to go all the way down to the bottom 8-inch board and cover that board as well. That's why I've got that 10-inch cake board underneath the entire cake. That way I have somewhere to put my hands when I'm moving the cake to and from the freezer as it sets. I'll keep frosting the cake until I have a good first coat of this frosting on. And then I take my cake scraper, holding it with pressure from the top to the bottom of the scraper, and I'm holding it right against the top and the bottom board. And now I go back and I fill in anywhere that has gaps and holes. That first scrape just wanted to give me an idea of how even my coat of frosting was. So after I filled in some of those gaps and air pockets, I'm going to take the cake scraper again, and I try to go in one motion to scrape the whole cake. I'm holding it tight against the cake, about a 45-degree angle. That way the frosting that I'm pulling away from the cake actually fills in any of those pockets or air bubbles and helps me to get a really smooth surface. I then freeze the cake for a good 20 to 30 minutes. When I take it out, I get a sharp knife and I go right under the edge of the cake board. I don't need to push the knife in too far, but just enough to start cutting off the board from the frosting that has been frozen. This is what gets me the sharp edge. So be careful, hold the board as you're cutting so it doesn't just tear off any of the frosting. But if you've left it in the freezer for 20 to 30 minutes, it should be really nice and solid. So now I'm just cleaning up the edges of the cake, any frosting crumbs or pieces that might be getting in the way. I'm going to clean those up, and next I'm going to add frosting to the top of the cake because you'll see that it's not completely smooth and it's a little uneven, and this is where we can even that out. I'll put the frosting in the center, and I push out from the center of the cake and move that frosting all the way to the very edge of the cake, even going over the edge just a little bit. As I'm stacking and as I frost my cake, I always get down and try to get eye level so I can see exactly how even the cake is or isn't. And now I'm taking my offset icing spatula and I'm just running it along the sides of the cake to push up that frosting that was hanging over the edges. Now I have a little bit of a ledge on the top of my cake with that frosting, and so I'm going to use my offset icing spatula, holding it pretty parallel to the cake, and I'm just going to drag that frosting in. I'm holding the spatula a little bit off of the cake, but really close and at a parallel angle, and just dragging that frosting to the center of the cake, and this gives me a really sharp, clean edge. So you pull in all that frosting and you're done. A nice sharp edge on a buttercream cake.